We are joined, though, by the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, in Sydney. Mr Frydenberg, good morning to you.
Nice to be with you.
Mr Broad's behaviour, this sleazy behaviour, overshadowed your surplus yesterday. Are you furious at Mr Broad, your coalition colleague?
Well, clearly his conduct is unacceptable and he's done the right thing to resign, but the Australian people and certainly the government are focused on delivering a stronger economy. In yesterday's announcement of the mid-year budget
Before we get to that, I'm going to give you a fair go on that, Treasurer, if you don't mind, because you've got some significant announcements to make there. But this sort of behaviour, should Mr Broad quit the Parliament altogether? This behaviour does not look good for the coalition.
Well, these are questions that only he can answer. But on both sides of the political divide, there have been issues with parliamentarians. We've seen that play out on the Labor side in recent weeks. But there is a bigger issue at play here, which is the state of the economy, what the government is doing to deliver better outcomes for all Australians. That's what I'm focused on, Michael. That's what the Prime Minister is focused on. And I know that people like to talk about the headlines and new ideas, but we're really focused on what, for the country,
well, in this case, Mr Frydenberg, the new idea seems to be spot on and the behaviour was absolutely accurate. If Mr Broad, as been reported this morning, has been found to have misused taxpayer funds, will there be an investigation into those claims?
Well, we have an independent process for looking at parliamentarians' expenses, and I'll leave it to that process.
Do you concede that it doesn't look flash for the coalition, this sort of behaviour by one of your MPs?
Well, like I said, on both sides of the political divide, there have been issues with MPs, and we've all got to remember we're only in Parliament to represent our constituents and the Australian people. We need to uphold the standards that they expect and that they live up to themselves, and I would say that about a National, a Liberal or a Labor or Independent or Green MP. We all should be living up to the standards that our constituents expect of us.
All right, let's talk about the surplus, which was overshadowed by this sleazy behaviour yesterday. A bigger than expected budget surplus for next year. The opposition says that's more good luck than good management. But let's drill into what you potentially have here. Potentially $9 billion in unspecified revenue reduction. Can you confirm that that will equate into tax cuts, put more money back into people's pockets?
Well, we've already legislated tax cuts for the crane driver and for the cafe owner and for millions and millions of Australians, and we're going to see the benefits of that. But as a Liberal and national government, we are focused on ensuring people can keep more of their hard-earned money. That's why we are the party of lower taxes.
But let's be specific about this. Before the election, using the money that you have now, rather than blow it on all sorts of election spending, can you commit to further tax cuts? Wages growth this morning has been described as pathetic. Real household income, good disposable income, flatline for the last 8 years. People need more money back in their pocket. Will you commit to that before this next election?
Well, Michael, firstly, I'm not going to make any announcements today about what we will say or do between now and the budget, but just to a couple of the statements that you just made. Firstly, wages growth is at 2.3%. That is the biggest jump that we've seen in 3 years. That came down in recent weeks. That compares to inflation of 1.9%. We want wages to go up, and of course, we are taking the necessary steps for that to happen. But when we came to government, unemployment was higher than it is today. When we came to government, growth was lower than it is today. When we came to government, investment was falling off a cliff, and now it is rising. And when we came to government, there were deficits that Labor had run up and that were going out many, many years into the future. We've turned the corner, not by luck, not by accident, but by disciplined decision-making. It is truly pathetic that the Labor Party continue to say, we didn't produce this result, it was some international, some sort of international economic experience that led us to the results we're having today.
Sure, but Treasurer, if I can pick you up on wages growth, you're in charge. You're going to have an election early next year to mid next year. Wages growth are flat. People don't have enough of their own money back in their pocket. Employers aren't giving pay increases at all. Isn't it up to the government now to start announcing some further tax cuts, not the legislated ones? And will you commit to that?
Well, firstly, those legislated tax cuts continue to play out. But what we have said, and what the Reserve Bank Governor has said, is as the economy continues to grow and the spare capacity in the labour market is eaten into, Michael, you will see upward pressure on wages. That's coming from no lesser a figure than the Reserve Bank Governor himself. But the Labor Party, and you've got to focus on the fact that this is a battle of ideas between us and them. It's a contest between us and them at the next election. They're proposing $200 billion worth of new taxes. When they had record high terms of trade, they couldn't deliver a budget surplus. The last one they delivered was 30 years ago. We are now delivering a surplus next year. That is the result of good economic management, and it's not an end in itself. It's merely a means to provide the health, the education, the infrastructure and the defence services and projects that the Australian people need and deserve.
All right, Treasurer, terrific. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good to be with you, Mike.